motion immediately. So those in favor, distinguish.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague, Adiola Solomon Olamilekan, representing Lagos West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, this motion is on the urgent need to investigate the explosion at Abule Ado, Amuwo Dofin local government area, resulting in loss of lives and massive destruction of property. The Senate notes that in the early hours of Sunday, March 15, 2020, a massive explosion occurred at a point in Abule Ado near the Lagos Trade Fair Complex along the Lagos-Badagry Expressway in Amuwo Dofin local government area of Lagos State. The Senate further notes that the explosion caused no fewer than 23 deaths, including that of a family of 4 on their way to church service, as well as the death of the school principal of Bethlehem Girls' School, Reverend Sister Harriet Alokia, who died while rescuing her student. Regret that the explosion, suspected to have been caused by an articulated vehicle loaded with granite, hitting a filled gas cylinder or pressurizing the NNPC pipeline at a point near NNPC 2B pipeline right of way, injured hundreds of persons, totally destroyed multi-billion naira properties and businesses, including 200 buildings and 2,500 vehicles within a radius of 40 square meters of the blast in the densely populated neighborhood, as well as other correlated destruction many kilometers away. Aware that there have been a recurrence of similar explosion in recent time in the same areas as it happened in 2016, in 2018 Abule Egba, in 2019 Abule Egba, and in 2020 Ijegun, and also in 2020 Ilepo Okiodo, all in Lagos West Senatorial District. Worried that Nigeria living around the axis or going about their legitimate endeavor now lives in justifiable fears of not losing their lives or those of loved ones from these frequent explosion, fire disaster, but also their properties and investments. Commend officers and men of NEMA, LASEMA, Lagos State and Federal Fire Services, Nigerian Navy, Air Force and other security agencies, NNPC and ordinary Nigerians on their prompt role in putting out this inferno resulting from the explosion and mitigating its spread, as well as rescuing victims. Specially commend Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the governor of Lagos State, for his leadership quality at this time of this crisis, and commend the Lagos State government for their prompt response to this national disaster, particularly the setting up of an Abule Ado Emergency Relief Fund worth 2 billion naira for the victim, with an initial takeoff of 250 million naira, and employ the federal government to do same. Accordingly resolved to 1. Observe a minute silence in honor of innocent Nigerians that lost their lives in this unfortunate national tragedy. 2. Send an high-powered delegation to the people and government of Lagos State to commensurate with them with a letter of condolence. 3. Direct NEMA and Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development to immediately send relief materials to affected victims and offset medical bill of hospitalized victims. 4. All the federal government and members of the National Assembly to donate to the 2 billion Abule Ado Emergency Relief Fund. 5. Direct the Senate Committee on Petroleum Downstream, Gas Resources and Petroleum Upstream to investigate the remote and immediate cause of this explosion with a view to prevent reoccurrence and providing a lasting solution, and reporting back to the Senate in 2 weeks. Mr. President, very distinguished colleague, I so move.
Tinubu, representing Lagos Central Senatorial District. I rise today to support the motion ably moved by my distinguished colleague and brother, Senator Olamilekan Solomon. And I want to first of all commiserate with him as my colleague, because this happened in his senatorial district, and also to commiserate with the government of Lagos State and those affected, the victims of Abule Ado area. This incident in Lagos is just an incident too many. And because from what my colleague has said, you can see that it has happened even twice. This will be the third time this year. I think it's occurring too often, and we'll begin to wonder why. And it is very disheartening, because the one that happened would have been through the carelessness of the driver. And then if we want to look critically, who are those people that are giving driver's licenses to? And also to check out the vehicles that we put on our roads. So we have so many things, so many blame games to put on what has happened, but we cannot bring back the lives that are lost or those people that are in hospital. So I want to condole the families of those that have lost loved ones in this incident, and also to those in hospital to wish them speedy recovery. And I also want to urge the federal government to come to our assistance in Lagos, because this is quite a very, very overwhelming responsibility for the government of Lagos State at the moment. And also to encourage my colleagues and also well-meaning Nigerians to come to our aid at this time, and then we'll really appreciate whatever assistance we can get, both financially, morally, and in whichever way that they deem fit. I thank you, Mr. President, and may the souls of the people we lost in this incident rest in perfect peace.
James APO, War Manager, CON Delta South. Mr. President, first, I commiserate with my colleague, Solomon Olamilekan, who is representing that particular community in this Senate. I also commiserate with the good people of that senatorial district, the state government, and particularly the victims. This is one tragedy too many. As Senator Solomon was reading out the motion, he has told the Senate and all Nigerians the number of times this particular thing has happened within and around that particular vicinity. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, only recently we were taking around the three committees on petroleum and gas, upstream, downstream, and gas. We were taking around the whole of Lagos, the GMD of NNPC, with his full team. We went round by air, looking at the different places where these pipes are located. Mr. President, as of today, as we speak, the cause or causes of this particular inferno we are yet to be told. And that's the reason why I support this particular motion. And not only supporting it because my colleague, Senator Tinubu, didn't second it. I also second the motion, Mr. President. This motion will unearth so many of the details about why this is happening very frequently in that part of the country. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, perhaps these pipes are not into the earth very seriously. Maybe they are on the surface. We need to know the depth of these pipes, how they have been laid. And of course, we also saw, when we went round, how some Nigerians decided to locate themselves very close to where these pipes are passing through. This is a regulated industry. And those who are supposed to enforce these things, they must enforce them to the letter. This is an avoidable, massive tragedy. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. Mr. President, this is unfortunate that this has happened again. So many lives lost, so many properties lost. Mr. President, it is very, very unfortunate that we are passing through very hard times and certain things are also happening to people like all of us. Mr. President, I want to agree with the motion. Something has to be done, and that will definitely reveal the details about what is happening there to put a final stop to what is happening in and around the Lagos environment. I support the motion, and I urge all my colleagues to support this very important motion for us to put a stop to the destruction of lives and properties. Thank you, Mr. President, for the
Mr. Senate President, my distinguished colleagues, I am Senator George Thompson Sekibo, CON Rivers East. Mr. President, if a man has gunpowder by his house and he is told that fire is not good with it, and then there is fire and he causes death. If a man hears that a snake enters your house, and then you hear it and you went and sleep in the house, the man is looking for death. You will recall, last year as we resumed the Senate, 2 motions came. One from Rivers State on Concom explosion, and one from Lagos State. You will also recall that because of those 2 motions, you set up another committee to carry out investigation. The other committee went out to Rivers State, Port Harcourt, Concom, and then went to Lagos. And we had far-reaching findings. These were put in the Senate committee report and then reported on the floor of the Senate. And then I'm sure many of the prayers you will be asking now will be similar to the same ones we asked for. And I also believe the recommendation of that proceedings may have been communicated to the agencies concerned. That would be about maybe 6-7 months ago. And between those 2 explosions and now, that what has happened in Lagos State, few others have also happened. I still believe something. Our regulatory bodies, or the PPMC, I like to have changed their name, they may not have been doing their best. As the President, you will recall, we called for management of our petroleum industry businesses with digital systems here, where we'll be able to monitor what happens on our pipelines, oil locations, oil field, and so on. I think as a Senate, we are doing our best to put in corrective measure so that these things don't happen again. Now, when we bring these motions, and then the recommendations are sent to the appropriate bodies, how do we know, how do you follow up to ascertain whether they are doing something about them or they are completely ignored? I think that is very important. Now, if we come out with issues to resolve certain crises in the country, and it is completely ignored or it is not looked after, we will be getting this same problem. That is why I came with those two proverbs. They always say that a stitch in time saves 9. Now we will see it, we will find a solution to it, and then we will recommend, and nothing is done. Today is in Lagos State. These pipelines crisscross so many parts of this country. Many of them that were laid are over 30, 40 years old. And some of them have lived their age. In some areas, like when we went to Lagos in the last fire incident, Mr. President, the pipe was buried deep, but now it has come to the surface. Maybe during weathering or wear and tear of the road, they have not come close to the surface. And so the pilferers can easily go, plug in a hole, and then cause these problems. We are in real problem. First, this is our main business for the entire country that gives us money. And then second, now the explosions is killing our people. The amount of stealing on the pipelines is so heavy. I believe we need to encourage the civil defense corps to do more, since it's one of their major functions, to do more. Maybe encourage them to engage more persons. When we went to Lagos and Port Harcourt, we were told that in every kilometer, they give only one person to monitor 1 kilometer of pipeline for the day. How can a man trek 1 kilometer or 4 kilometers up and down for one day? It's not a possible thing. When we went to Port Harcourt, we saw that the station where the security are located and where the thing happened is about like 200 meters. Is overseeing the place. So sometimes there are also connivers. So I think that maybe that we need to do much more thing. Otherwise, every day we'll be losing people. Well, it's just like every day talking about the theory. I sympathize with my colleague that brought the motion, and we are constituent for this event that has happened to them. I sympathize also with the government and the people of Lagos State. But I pray that we should take a good look at the motions and the recommendations we have already recommended here, what happened to them. So these ones too will not go and die down in that area. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, my name is Uche Leland Efnifiyom. Mr. President, I come from Anambra State. I represent Anambra Central. Mr. President, first of all, let me commiserate with my brother that moved this motion. Even though this incident happened in Lagos, it affected about 5 of my constituents. The couple that died, that couple is from N2bn in Anambra State. The deaconess died with the husband, the son, the house help, and one other person in their vehicle when they were going to the church. Mr. President, this is one incident but too many. I want to say that I want to bring up the issue of the Reverend Sister Henrietta Aloka, that in trying to save the children, she lost her life. She lost her life because she was working very hard to ensure the safety of every child in that school. And I thank God that God, in His infinite mercies, saved the entire children of that particular school. But this woman lost her life in the process of doing her calling. Mr. President, while I commiserate with them, I have to also bring the issue of integrity of our pipelines to the floor. Mr. President, some of those pipelines have been there for so many years. In contractual agreement, there's always an expiration period for pipeline, but I don't think that is being followed up by Ministry of Petroleum. I think because of this recent fire outbreak, we'll have to go back to them and look at all the contractual agreements they've entered into in the past many years, to look at the pipelines that are still in place and those that need to be changed. I think we have to, because they're looking at the amount of money they're going to spend in laying a new pipeline. Therefore, they will not be able to, they will continue to maintain the one they laid for. So even before independence, some of the pipelines are still there. Another one is connivance and sabotage. some of the people living along where they have those pipelines always connive with pipeline vandals to open up a pipeline to take the crude. And in process of doing that, they will cause this kind of inferno. I think we have to also, find a way of getting them to use the local vigilante to safeguard the pipeline in order to stop us from having this kind of, incident we have. It's becoming too rampant. Today is Lagos, another day it will be Warri, another time it will be Port Harcourt. We have to take this very seriously and take it as a national issue. It is on that I want to commiserate with the families and also to commiserate with my brother and Lagos State government on this particular incident. Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity.
Deputy Leader of the Senate.
I rise to support the motion moved by my dear brother and commensurate with people of Lagos State. Not only Lagos State, because Abule Ado has many Nigerians staying there. So it's not only Lagos State. Mr. President, I watched the footage of what happened in Abule Ado, and it's so serious and so unfortunate that so many lives and properties were destroyed in that inferno. Mr. President, this has happened according to the mover of this motion. It has become a recurrent decimal. The one that happened in Ijegu, Ijododo, also was related to pipelines. In the Yoruba wisdom, they say when a child falls down, he looks forward. But when an elderly man falls, he looks backward to find what may be the cause of the falling down. Mr. President, this is happening so many times, and there's a need to look at the possible reasons why this thing is happening. One thing that is important, Mr. President and dear colleagues, is that when you lay a pipeline, there is usually the right of way, the minimum distance by which people can, carry out activities near the pipeline. I have seen pipeline between Mile 2 and Lagos State University almost on the surface, and people who are doing farming almost around the pipeline. I think the NNPC should be called upon to enforce the right of way that have been prescribed by law to protect the pipelines. Once we do that, I think it will reduce the incident of these types of disaster in our country. Once again, I want to thank Mr. Senator Solomon for bringing up this, and I commensurate with not only Lagosian but Nigerians who have people residing in Abule Ado. Thank you, Mr. President.
I am Senator Baroji Brain, Kano North. Mr. President, I'm really touched, and that's why I've decided to seek your permission so that I can contribute to this very, very important debate that touches on those who lost their lives and the related sad things that happened with the event that occurred in Lagos over the weekend. And I want to begin by extending my condolences to those who lost their lives and also sympathize with those who got injured and those who lost their valuables. Mr. President, this is a reoccurring situation in the Lagos area. Sadly, you have a year without having this kind of situation occurring, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 times. And I think it's a sad commentary. Not even I think, it's a fact. It's a sad commentary on the way we run our affairs as a nation. We know that we have this problem, and it does occur from time to time, and we don't take steps to a kind of make sure that we put a stop to these kind of sad scenarios. I don't want to just be gone, because the motion itself is calling for an investigation to unravel the cause of this sad event. But one fact remains very, very clear in our minds, that the way we manage our traffic system in this country is not the way it should. Rules and regulations are not followed, and this gives way for reckless driving, to allowing those who are not supposed to even drive a bicycle, someone that is not supposed to drive, to ride a bicycle, driving a car or a vehicle, and thereby killing people with reckless abandon every day. That's what we see every day on our roads. So I think we need to make sure that we come to terms with this reality by making sure we put together all those things that we need to put together to ensure that rules and regulations that are involved in the normal traffic arrangement is brought to bear in the way we run our traffic system in this country. Besides that, several speakers have spoken before me about the way our pipelines, the oil pipelines, are laid. There have been lamentations, there have been cries, there have been calls in respect to how these pipes are laid, that they are not supposed to be so, they are in the open, and anything that creates any sign of spark, ignite an inferno where several people are killed. So we need to make sure that we replace or rearrange the pipeline, the oil pipeline, so that we do not have this kind of situation happening, reoccurring all the time, happening today, happening tomorrow. I mean, almost around here. I think we'll wait for the investigation, and after the investigation, then we'll take appropriate whatever is found out to be the reason for this ugly situation. We should make sure that we do not allow that to happen again. Enough is enough. A lot of people have died. A lot of people have lost their valuables. It's not good for this kind of to continue, because we are leaders, men to see ways to safeguard the lives and properties of the people in this country, and we have to make sure that we have to make sure that we act in the manner that we do what we are supposed to do. Mr. President, so solid.
Colleagues, my name is Mohammed Sani Musa, representing Niger East. I stand to commiserate, just as my colleagues have done earlier, with Lagos State government and the people that have been affected by this inferno. As a member of ad hoc committee that investigated what happened in Rivers and Lagos State, what we have seen physically and what is still there, I think, to my own opinion, these disasters are not yet over. We should own it. NNPC, the security agencies need to do more. Because, one, just as the last speaker said, traffic regulation is not adhered to in this country, from the top to the bottom. And there is no exception. Even those that are supposed to lead well, they come with sirens and they beat traffic. The trucks do not go on MOT. There is nothing like checks. And then the pipelines are open and exposed. What we have seen in Ejogun clearly shows that we are not yet serious on safety. Most of these pipes are rusted. They've been there for more than 30 years. And vehicles are going on top of these pipes. You see them naked. And they are in the middle of a community where there are so many inhabitants. What do we expect if there is any danger? Nothing is being done about it. And I am sure last year, so many of these infernos happened, whereby the people that are supposed to have taken care of these things came defending what purely you can see that there is a wrongdoing, but they are defending it. So, I think what the earlier speakers have said, NNPC must go back to the drawing board to either relocate these pipelines. It can be done. Development have reached all these areas that those days were outskirts. But today development have reached those places. I will not be surprised to see structures built on pipelines. So what do we expect if there is any of this kind of explosion? Disaster. So I think the Senate should call on NNPC to be up and doing in respect of our pipelines. And NEMA should see how they can go and compensate these people. Also, Ministry of Environment, because there is no impact assessment, environmental impact assessment is zero in those areas. Something needs to be done. And this is my little contribution. Thank you, Mr.
My name is Sam Ebu. I represent Ebonyi North Central District. I want to support this motion and sympathize with my colleague and the good people of Lagos State. And in doing that, I want to observe, Mr. President, we have lamented enough. Every day we lament, especially on this issue of explosions and fire outbreak due to pipeline, tanker, or gas explosions. Mr. President, I hope that the earlier we start tackling these issues, the better for us. Each time there's explosion and death, what we hear is that investigation is going on. And yet, we have not seen any result or consequence of what has happened. All the deaths have been caused by mistakes of individuals or the regulating agencies. And yet, we have not set any single penalty. And yet, human beings have died. I think without going further in trying to lament and talk unnecessary grammar, can we come up with a situation where we say, from now onwards, let us hear the results. Let NPC do the needful, either to relocate those pipes or punish their staff that have failed in doing their duties. And for the state governments, I want to appreciate the governor that immediately responded by going to the site and even see Mr. President. But it should do more than that. What's up the state government from going through all these pipelines and demolishing all the illegal structures that are close to the pipeline? This can be done. It can be done immediately to save more lives. Before NNPC will talking about relocating that will take so many months or years. Let the government immediately tackle this issue by demolishing illegal structures and stop giving permits for building on places close to the pipelines. Not just in Lagos, but across the states of the Federation. I think if we start handling these issues and be seen to be doing it, it will reduce these deaths that have become so common. Once again, I sympathize with those who died, Mr. President.
Senator Abikunle Amosun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ibikunle Amosun, I represent Ogun Central. Mr. President, first let me join my colleagues in sympathizing and commiserating with those that several of our people that died. This is not just about maybe Lagos State alone, because it cuts across. First town, Abule Ado, where the thing happened, it's like a mini Nigeria, and everybody, almost everybody from all the parts of Nigeria must have been affected. But Mr. President, this one that happened is different. And I think it's good for us to make this clarification. This, from what we heard, I've not been there, and from what we read and what we see, the television clearly shows that it is an accident and safety taken together. This is not about maybe people going to either break the pipeline, or they want to, or vandals, or they want to scoop petroleum products. This is not. This is purely an accident that has now exposed our preparedness and the level in which we take security concerns as it affects maybe where our pipe passes through. Mr. President, it's either of two things or even three. I happen to be in the upstream committee, and we invited the GMD of NNPC, DPR, and all the related agencies. We talked about this safety, and they mentioned that there is what they call, is it high density, that they will lay the pipe will be about maybe several kilometers down, several meters down, such that when accident like this happen, it will not affect maybe the colossal human loss that we have. Mr. President, this one affected people innocent people that are about maybe even almost 500 meters away from where the pipeline passes. Because of the nature of the explosion, and houses were burnt far beyond even where pipes were laid. So they have the option, either now to begin to now relocate all areas where it is now maybe densely populated, they begin to relocate the pipes, or they now use the modern tool of going down to lay this pipe. But they were told that this is about 7 times or whatever times the cost of laying the normal pipes. This they will go down, deep down, and it is such that when eventualities happen like this, it will not be affected. The other option is, I don't know how that one will be feasible, is to now begin to relocate anywhere where they now see that our people, the way we are, they've built around those pipelines. Either they will now look at the cost-benefit analysis, either to now begin to relocate all of those, particularly in those places where you will see it's like a town now. They can begin to relocate them, or in the alternative, they can begin to now use that modern tool and way of maybe carrying petroleum products. That is by going down to maybe 10, 15, or 20 meters, such that incidences like this will be avoided. So on that note, Mr. President, yes, I'm happy that they said they are investigating, but that investigation should be more on those things that we've talked about, and that is the safety and the technology that we can bring to bear now in the laying of those pipes, particularly in communities where it's very, very, people are plenty there, people that are many that are now living in those areas where the pipeline passes. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Senate resolves to 1, observe a minute silence in honor of innocent Nigerians that lost their lives in the unfortunate national tragedy. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Send a high-powered delegation to Lagos and write a condolence letter to the people and government of Lagos State. Is that the way it is? Okay, those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3. Direct NEMA and Federal Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development immediately send relief materials to affected victims and offset medical bills of hospitalized victims. I think NEMA is under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. So if you say NEMA and then you mention the ministry, sorry?
NEMA is under special duty, Ministry of Special Duty.
No. So can we... Okay. Direct the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development to immediately send relief materials to affected victims and offset medical bills of hospitalized victims. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Prayer 4. Urge the federal government and members of the National Assembly to donate to the 2 billion naira Abule Ado Emergency Relief Fund. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Prayer 5. Direct the Senate committees on petroleum downstream, gas resources, and petroleum upstream to investigate the remote and immediate causes of the explosion with a view to prevent recurrence and find lasting solution and report back to the Senate in 2 weeks. Is that a lasting solution? Point of order, Senator Gobir.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Your order is sustained, but I think you can use that as an additional prayer. Yes, when we come to additional prayer. So direct the Senate committees on petroleum downstream, gas resources, and petroleum upstream to investigate the remote and immediate causes of the explosion with a view to prevent recurrence and proffer lasting solution and report back to Senate in 2 weeks. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer, Senator Brian Gobir. Those in favor of the additional prayer by Brian Gobir say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayer, Deputy Senate Leader.
Thank you, Mr.
Any seconder? Thank you very much. Ondo United.
I so second, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Those in favor of the additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Well, thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. I want to sympathize on behalf of all of us with the government and people of Lagos State for this accident. Just like Senator James' manager said, it was an accident, one too many. This thing happened, some similar thing happened sometimes in October or so. We took resolutions here and we had very far-reaching resolutions. I've asked for our resolutions on the Komkom explosion and in rivers and Ijegun in Lagos. And we had about 17 recommendations, resolutions that we sent to the office of the SGF on the 13th of November 2019. I want to advise the executive side of government that when we take resolutions like this, we take them with all seriousness and they mean a lot to us and they mean a lot to Nigerians. When accidents of this nature happened, all of us on both sides of government must come together to ensure that we address the issues so that they don't happen. Now it has happened again, maybe in even larger situation, and it's not good for us to be talking about the same thing. So I want to, alongside what all our colleagues have said, especially Senator Ibrahim Gobir with his additional prayer, that the executive should implement the resolutions that we passed in November regarding the explosions that happened. And this one, I believe that the outcome may be the same even when we investigate, but we have passed a resolution on that. But I also want to advise that when our drivers or our trucks carry loads, they should take those loads within the confines of the weights allowed. This accident was reported to have been sparked by a truck carrying granites, a treated vehicle. It will be interesting to find out what was the weight of what that truck was carrying. Probably he might have been carrying something double of what he was supposed to be carrying. So we need to really go back to insisting on trucks, whether they are carrying liquid things like petrol or hard things like granite, that they remain within the weight that is allowed. Because some of the accidents are happened because these trucks are overwhelmed, or the burden is, the load is too heavy for them to negotiate certain corners or certain bends in the road. And I also want to advise our urban and town planners, if you have pipelines going through a certain place, don't approve of people to build houses near those. And where people decide not to listen to the authorities, such houses, like one of our colleagues advised, should be demolished. Because it's better someone remains alive and have his house somewhere else far away from the city than loses his life because he wanted to stay somewhere in the middle of the city. So I think there is need for enforcement of town and urban planning designs by our authorities. With that, I want to thank everyone for this, and we pray that those who lost their lives in this, may the good Lord repose their souls in perfect peace. 1 minute silence. May the souls of our compatriots who lost their lives in the Abule Ado accident rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate.